Now, I love history, and I love mystery, and I love it when the two just combine. Today's video is about all those things, and a bit more. Hello, and today we are going to be talking about Portlock, Alaska, and how it was reportedly attacked by a beast in the woods. But before we get too far in, I would like to offer an apology. I cannot guarantee I'm going to say any of these words correctly. I am not an Alaska native. I can't promise perfection. I'm sorry. What is this town? Portlock is a now abandoned fishing and cannery town located in the Kenai Peninsula of Port Chatham. The town was established in the early 20th century and was reportedly named after one Captain Nathaniel Portlock of the British Navy, who had to dock there and praised the town for its beauty. Well, not the town, the port. The town wasn't there yet, I don't believe. Anyways, Portlock, the town, not the captain, wasn't used for its reported beauty. Rather, it was a working town that primarily inhabited Russian and Alaska natives, where they worked as fishermen, lumbermen, miners, and cannery workers. You know, it's a fishing and lumber export town, so that's what they had. The town had a small, steady growth of about 31 residents by 1921, which was enough for the government to issue a post office to be made. But this seeming prosperity was cut short within 30 years, as in 1950, the town's final nail in the coffin was that post office actually shutting down due to a lack of residents. But what's causing these people to leave? What's causing this exodus? Officially, residents claimed that the town was too far away from the newly constructed highway Alaska Route 1. The unofficial reason was that for some time, the town was being terrorized by some beast or other. But before we get into the ghouls and goblins, let's talk about the official reason. Because while it might seem a little weird that the town being too far away from a highway is cause for abandonment, there are a few things to consider. Number one, Alaska has some of the toughest terrain on the planet, and possibly one of the worst winters. The state isn't called the last frontier for nothing. It would certainly take a specific type of person to live there, especially in the 1920s to 50s. Speaking of that time frame, number two, this was the beginning of the Cold War, which was a major reason that highways were being constructed everywhere due to the threat of the Soviet Union invading. They had to get military people all across the country as fast as they could, which is why highways are actually constructed, at least interstate highways. So now that we understand that, let's jump back into the ghouls and goblins. So what's this about a monster in the woods? Well, it all started in the early 1900s, where people of the town were harassed by some large thing stalking their camps at night. This on its own isn't really anything of true concern, because after all, they're camping in the wilderness of Alaska. Huge animals are everywhere, and a lot of them are pretty territorial. But this changed when a group of gold miners and hunters who worked up in the mountains just disappeared. So while it wasn't unheard of for accidents to happen, this is like early 1900s, these people were just missing, like gone. They're experienced. They've been covering these wilderness all the time, taking the same trails up to the mines. It's reasonable to assume that they would be missing for a couple days and then come back like, oh, you guys just worked a little. No, these guys are just straight up gone. This one guy over there had a little place where he was digging for gold. Went up there one time, never came back. Never really found any signs of him. But things like this aren't really anything, right? I mean, it's a small town of men working in tough conditions, miles away from civilization. That's what the people of Portlock were thinking, until Andrew Kamuk was found dead on his own. Andrew was a local lumberjack who often worked out in the woods with his equipment. He's out on his own. He doesn't have anyone working with him. So when he goes off to work on his own, no one's going to really bat an eye. They're going to say, oh, Andrew Kamuk's off on his work again. He's going to bring back, like, wood. But when people noticed that he had been gone for a little too long, people went to check on him, where they found a crime scene. About 10 feet from his equipment was Andrew's body, with his head bashed in. From what they could figure, Andrew was killed by his own equipment in a single blow. But how? The first assumption was it had to be an accident. I mean, he's out on his own with heavy equipment. He had to have done something. He must have slipped, fell, hit his head on something. Done. But he's 10 feet away from his equipment. If you bash your head in, don't bash your head in. If your head's bashed in, you aren't going to be stumbling 10 feet, fall over and die there. If it's a fatal enough blow, you're just dead. Just full dead right there. Ka! Right? So, if not that, then the next assumption had to be murder. Someone came and killed him out here. But that doesn't make sense either. The blow was done by his equipment. This heavy equipment. It's heavy logging equipment. I believe he was a log splitter, so it's most likely a 1920s log splitter. Huge. It's not going to be one guy lifting that and hitting him with it. And no one's going to lift Andrew and hit him with it and then toss him 10 feet. It doesn't make sense. So, what happened? This question plagued the residents of Portlock, and the next findings didn't alleviate any of that fear. A group of hunters came back claiming that while tracking a moose, they found its body full dead in a pile of its own blood with branches broken everywhere, shooting off in a direction. And when they looked down to track what thing killed the moose before they got to it, they found 18-inch long footprints that looked like men, like 18-inch long men's footprints. Tales were told of villagers tracking moose over soft ground. They would find giant, man-like tracks over 18 inches in length, closing upon those of the moose. The signs of a short struggle where the grass had been matted down, then only the deep tracks of the man-like animal departing toward the high, fog-shrouded mountains. This wasn't the last time these footprints were found. As they had started appearing closer and closer to the town, the mystery surrounding this thing only got worse when the resident Tom Larson, who I believe is a lumber worker, claimed to have seen a tall, hairy thing destroy equipment used in the cannery. Which is, he ran and grabbed his gun. He's gonna shoot this thing. Another story recounted the experience of a sawmill owner named Tom Larson. He had the job of cutting wood for the old fish traps. He told of spotting the beast on the shore, and after going back to his house to get his gun, he returned to the beach and the thing looked at him. For some reason, Larson decided against firing a shot. Sightings had become more and more common, some locals believing it to be a bear or a moose or some other large animal. But this was in conjunction with the bodies that had been found in the woods or washed up on shore, all in states of decomposition, dismemberment, and even states of being eaten. So what's killing these people? A bear could be the explanation. It should be said these people practically lived in the wild, with some of the population being natives to Alaska. But that's the thing. Some of these people were natives to Alaska. Wouldn't they know what animals are out there that could possibly be doing this? Well, they actually had two ideas of what it could be. The first suspect was this spirit of a pale-faced woman wearing a long black dress who moaned and wailed uncontrollably. This spirit would lure any who could hear her to the cliff sides, where she would just vanish if you got too close. And while it could be an explanation to some of the missing people that, they must have wandered off and found this woman and just vanished, it doesn't explain the dead bodies that were found. This leaves one culprit, a beast. In interviews with people who lived in the Port Chatham area, we can hear them blame a creature known as the Nantinnuk for these attacks. The Nantinnuk, from the Sugpiaq folklore, translates to half man, half beast, or large hairy thing. It mostly resembles Bigfoot, but I refrain from saying as such because this creature is believed to be either a spirit or elemental that seems to be pretty territorial of its own land. This is from an interview with Melania Helen Kell, who was born in 1934 in Port Chatham. But when Kell was a child, the family abruptly moved away, leaving the house and their possessions behind. We left our houses and the school, started anew here in Nonwillock. There was plenty of land here for gardening and people. My parents built a house on the beach. But what had frightened Cale's parents away hadn't been a single event. Over a long period of time, the Nantinnuk was reportedly terrorizing villagers. The goosebump terror felt when people encountered these spirits was nothing compared to what happened to Cale's godfather. He was working on a boat in 1931 when someone or something hit him over the head with a winch. The blow reportedly killed him instantly. But is it true? Is this Nantinnuk really out there? While reading this interview with Melania, I found a second interview done with the Anchorage Press of her cousin and translator Sally, who claims that the story Melania had told was just completely made up. My cousin Melania kind of made up a story because she was getting tired of people asking if this story is true. She made up this story about how Bigfoot was killing people. It wasn't true, everybody knows that, but it was not our place to say nothing. We all knew, but we couldn't just stop her. We were brought up in a way where we can't tell our elders they are wrong. There was me and my sisters and my cousins, and we all just sat there. We couldn't tell her, don't say that, Melania, because she might get mad at us. We were younger than her, and we were not allowed to say anything like that. Melania knew that we knew about her story that she made up, and we all had to laugh about it with her. People would see the Nantinnuk, but that wasn't the reason people moved this way to Seldovia or Nanwalek. They moved because of the economy, schools, the church. There really was no killing of people. Why then? If Sally and Melania claimed that people did see the creature here, why fabricate a story about this Nantinnuk attacking the town? I think she was also not happy with when they would go down and see that the town was all different. Abandoned, rotting buildings, no more things to look at that she would see growing up. That is where our culture is. That's where our people lived. We have ties there. Since we left, a lot of boats have come in and just took stuff out. Old Victrolas, old books. They just disappeared, and now all we have are rotting buildings there. Empty buildings with graffiti on some of them. When we go down, we are not looking for our things. We're going down because we want to feel. There's people buried there. We want to feel connected to them. Our ancestors are buried there. Part of me comes from those people, and they are buried there. I have to agree with Sally here in the fact that it seems that this Nantinnuk story of Port Chatham, or Portlock, Alaska, is made to scare away people who just don't respect the area or the town. I mean, how would you feel if you had to abandon a place and you see people just take your stuff and you can't do anything about it? You don't technically own it anymore. All these people just come ravaging where you live just because they're looking for some beast. People come and they're just jumping around looking for him. They'll never find him like that because he's just gonna run away from you. He's fast, you know. We keep telling people, don't go looking for him, and they go and do it anyways. They don't believe us. He's never going to show himself like that. When you're looking for him and thinking you're gonna find him, he's not hanging around waiting for people. If you follow him, he will hide, and he could turn into different animals. You can chase him, and suddenly he disappears behind a tree, and when you get close enough to see him, all you see is a shimmering little mouse. They would change to a different animal, make you feel sad for them. They said don't touch them, just leave them alone. And don't shoot them, you'll never kill them. One man tried to do it, but the Nantinnuk just took the bullet and pulled it out of his chest. This legend of the Nantinnuk didn't just start. The Sugpiaq people always knew the story. But we also know it wasn't a bloodbath like it's being told. Nantinnuk never kills anybody. If anything, he runs away. He didn't want to be around people. He's out there. He lives among us. The Alaska wilderness offers much mystery and danger for all of the people that live there. In this rugged landscape, this danger that perpetuates the wilderness out there, it shapes their beliefs. They've learned to respect these dangers and cherish its wonders by passing down stories like the Nantinnuk that teach you to respect these lands where this creature lives. And I think if there should be any takeaway from this whole story or lore of this town and this area, it shouldn't be that, oh, potentially mystic Bigfoot's out there pulling bullets out of his chest, killing people with their own equipment. No, it should be, this is sacred land to someone. People lived there. It's still standing. You can still technically go there. And if you do, you shouldn't be taking anything. You shouldn't be defiling it. And that's today's video. So yeah, if this video does as good as the last one or better somehow, expect more. Bye.